What's up, gentlemen and ladies? Yoshi Smiles here, bringing you guys a Dead by Daylight discussion video, and today I figured we should talk about the Legion. Now, Legion is a very controversial killer amongst the community. Some people love them, some people hate them, but majority of people feel like they don't have a place in the game because they are fundamentally broken, fundamentally flawed, and don't play like most other killers, and that could be seen as a good or a bad thing depending on who you are. But really quickly, I want to get into talking about the basics of the killer, including the power, and then we can get this discussion underway. Now, the killer is 110% movement speed base, 132% movement speed while using the power, Feral Frenzy. They have a 24-meter terror radius while they are base, and 32-meter terror radius while inside Feral Frenzy. They have average height, and to go over the power, when activating Frenzy, the Legion sprints faster than their base movement speed, can vault over pallets, cannot see survivor scratch marks, and missed attacks have a reduced cooldown. When they stab a survivor, it applies the deep wound status effect. It injures the survivor if they are not already injured, and it refills the Legion's entire power gauge. And it triggers what's called Killer Instinct, which reveals the locations of survivors who are not in the deep wound status effect. Stabbing a survivor, in the deep wound status effect reduces a portion of their deep wound bleed-out timer and depletes the Legion's entire power gauge. When a survivor is in the deep wound status effect, they are pretty much put on a timer, and they have to mend out of it. So, what's the problem here? Well, first, I'm going to talk about the character's strengths. We're going to go positive for the first portion, because this is going to be a mainly negative video, if you couldn't tell. The strengths of the killer: they're very easy to chase with. It's easy to engage in a chase with them. It's easy to get the initial hit off. It's easy to just chase all the way through because your power pretty much ignores all of Survivor's defenses. It ignores pallets, it ignores windows. You're a very high movement speed. You don't have a cooldown to your missed attacks or even your hit attacks. So the Legion is very easy to chase with. They are anti-stealth, having immerse survivors. Even if they're inside lockers, they can still be seen by Killer Instinct when you stab someone with Feral Frenzy. And they're very low skill to play with very high impact. Being able to just, like I said before, ignore survivor defenses, get those initial hits off really easily, get everybody injured, and have them all off generators and mending while you chase somebody else is extremely strong. Now let's talk about the killer's weaknesses. Well, they kinda have trouble killing without strong add-ons and without using exploits. And the strong add-ons obviously being Frank's mixtape, Cold Dirt, Joey's mixtape, Stab Wound Study, in any combination of those four particular add-ons. Now, what are the issues with the Legion? Well, there's no counterplay. As I said before, they completely ignore survivors' defenses, being able to vault over pallets and windows, making it unfun for both the killer and the survivor, because the chase is practically pre-written in that sense. And as I said before, they're very low skill. There's no real mind game potential against the Legion or as the Legion. You just kinda press the button, hit the survivor, vault over a pallet, vault over a window, hit them again, and just repeat the process over and over until they go down. And as I said before, they have a very high impact on the game, being able to slow it down immensely, getting survivors off generators and mending, and the person being chased not having any counterplay means that they're going to go down pretty quickly and pretty easily, especially if you have strong add-ons or if you use exploits, making it so that way you can rack up your hooks and your kills fairly quickly. Now, because of all that, the character is not very fun to play as or against. I understand some people have more fun playing as the Legion. Some people have a lot of fun playing as the Legion mains out there that really love the killer, love how they play, and think that they're extremely good with the killer, when in actuality the killer just doesn't really require skill to play and doesn't have any counterplay to them whatsoever. So I wanted to talk about tweaks that I have to change the Legion, keep them viable, make them decently strong, not overpowered, not underpowered, just make them better, make them play as intended, and make them less fundamentally broken and unfun to play as and against. So, for my tweaks, we're going to change Legion's base movement speed from 110 to 115%. Stabbing a survivor with Feral Frenzy will do 1 state of damage, and you will be able to see all other uninjured survivors with your killer instinct. Stabbing a survivor again with Frenzy, when they are already injured, will do no damage, will kick you out of the power, and will deplete your entire power gauge. This way, the Legion can still chain hit and see survivors to bounce between them, and then you play them as intended. You chase normally after the initial free hit. We're going to take away the ability from vaulting pallets. That'll be put onto an add-on, mayhaps the iridescent button or the fuming mixtape or something like that. And then we will lower the cooldown of the power and increase the duration of the power. My personal opinion, I think that the yellow cooldown and duration add-ons should be base kit, and then we can tweak the numbers of the other add-ons accordingly. So because of the power being reworked in this way, we're going to have to tweak some of the other add-ons. So Frank's mixtape would be a purple duration add-on. Stab wound study would instead inflict the hemorrhage status effect, where the survivor has increased bleeding frequency, or mayhaps it'll do something along the lines of Wraith's, I think it's the Hound add-on that makes the blood slightly brighter while using the power. Maybe it could do something like that, and they could lower the rarity from a purple to maybe like a yellow or something like that. And then the red add-ons, as I said before, I would like Eerie Button to still have your terror radius cover the entire map, but give you the ability to vault pallets rather than it being able to vault and break them. Just give it the ability to vault pallets since we're taking it away from the base power. Fuming Mixtape can be kept the way it is. It's just kind of a gimmicky add-on. And then the cooldown and duration add-ons can have their numbers tweaked accordingly. The Blade add-ons that make it take longer to mend can instead inflict the Mangled status effect, similar to the Huntress, Hillbilly, and Leatherface's ones, where, you know, they have Mangled for, I believe it's 120 seconds, and then the other one is like 80 or something like that, 70 seconds. So that's how we would tweak the add-ons and tweak the power. Now what about Legion's viability in that sense? Well, if the Legion were to play that way, looking at it from both a survivor and a killer standpoint, it would be unfun to play against Legion initially in the beginning of the match. They still get their free hit off, being able to ignore survivors' defenses aside from pallets, but them having that high movement speed and no cooldown on their hits would make it very easy still. And then obviously they would still be able to vault windows at their current speed. So they would still be strong in the beginning of a chase, but how about in the middle and at the end of a chase? Well, you would be able to chain hit survivors, making Thanatophobia still be very strong on the killer, and making Monitor and Abuse still be strong on the killer, because the terror radius numbers would stay the same, and you'd still be able to see uninjured survivors. But here's the issue, is that survivor counterplay in that sense would be just don't heal against Legion. But again, even though they won't heal against Legion, so that way you can't frenzy hit and see the other survivors, they would have to chase normally at 115%. That's just the thing. They're a 115% movement speed killer. Not healing against the Legion so that way you can't be seen by Killer Instinct would be no different than not healing against a Plague, or not healing against, or not waking up against an insta-sleep Freddy. There's a lot of things that the survivor misses out on and loses by playing that way. And since the killer would be 115% movement speed, not healing against them would be a big issue, because then chases would end very quickly unless you're good at looping, just like with how Plague is now. The only difference between Legion and Plague being that Plague obviously has a projectile and a completely different status effect to Legion, whereas Legion would just be able to run in, chain hit multiple survivors to get them injured, and then have to chase normally. The survivors can choose whether or not to heal. If they don't heal, they will have to face the wrath of getting one-tapped by a 115% movement speed killer. And if they do heal, then they would have to face the punishment of being able to be seen and stabbed fairly easily. So I want to know what you guys think about Legion, what you guys think about my proposed changes. How do you feel about the killer? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you agree with the things that I said, both positive and negative? Do you agree with my changes? I want to see a discussion in the comments, mayhaps on Twitter or in my messages, whatever it may be. I just want to know your guys' opinion. I will be doing more videos like this in the future. I wanted to do them in the order of a tier list, but the reason that I covered Legion first is because I don't have a spot for them on my tier list. So, if you know me well enough, you know that the next killer we'll be covering is pig. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you in the fog.